A gunshot echoes through the Parliament buildings in Wellington. Committee Room 7. William Larnach, 65 years old, Member of Parliament for 14 years, lies dead. Single bullet to the head, self-inflicted. On the table beside him, a letter. The contents were never made public. 300 miles south, on a hilltop overlooking Dunedin harbor, stands the castle he built. 43 rooms, a turret 320 meters above sea level. Construction cost between £100,000 and £150,000, roughly $600 to $900 million in today's money. Italian marble, Venetian glass, ceilings that took 6.5 years to carve. A 3,000-square-foot ballroom completed in 1887 as a 21st birthday present for his eldest daughter, Kate. Kate died 4 years later. Typhoid fever, age 26. The numbers tell part of the story. The castle required a staff of 46 servants. About 200 workers built the main structure starting in 1871. Materials imported from across the world: Glasgow bricks, Marseille cobbles, Cornwall blackstone, Carrara marble. 20 tons of glass from Venice, a 1-ton Spanish marble bath that required 6 horses and 12 men to install. But the numbers don't tell you what Larnach Castle was really defending. Not wealth, not status. Love, family, the people William Larnach built this for. And one by one, death took them all. If you enjoy investigations into historic houses and the families whose tragedies echo through them, please like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which property to explore next. Your support makes these detailed stories possible. Thank you for being here. The story begins not with death, but with ambition. A Scottish banker who came to New Zealand's goldfields and decided to build something that would outlast him. It did, but not the way he hoped. Let's begin. William James Muddy Larnach was born in New South Wales, Australia in 1833. Scottish descent. His father was a merchant. The family was respectable but not wealthy, certainly not aristocratic. William went into banking, the profession of men with ambition but no landed inheritance, the career path for those who understood numbers and credit and the movement of money. Larnach had an illustrious career in banking for many years, and he began his work in Melbourne. By his 20s, he was managing banks, tracking loans, understanding how fortunes were made and lost. This was the 1850s in Australia, the height of the gold rush. Men arrived penniless and left rich. Others arrived rich and left ruined. Banks sat in the middle, financing dreams, foreclosing failures. Eventually, Larnach moved to the Australian goldfields during the gold rush, and while in Ararat, he became the manager of the Bank of New South Wales. Ararat, Victoria, a boomtown built on gold. Larnach was in his late 20s, managing the bank that financed miners, merchants, speculators. He learned how quickly wealth could accumulate and how quickly it could vanish. He married Eliza Jane Guise in 1859. She was the daughter of a respectable family. Eliza bore 6 children: Donald, Douglas, Kate, Colleen, Alice, Gladys. A growing family, a stable career. Then, opportunity arrived. When gold was eventually discovered in Otago, New Zealand, Larnach was called upon to be the manager of Dunedin's Bank of Otago, which served the new goldfields in the area. He and his wife Eliza and their children arrived in New Zealand in 1867. Otago, New Zealand, the South Island. Gold discovered in 1861. By 1867, Dunedin was the largest city in New Zealand, wealthier than Auckland or Wellington, fueled entirely by gold money. The Bank of Otago needed someone who understood goldfield banking. Larnach came highly recommended. While in Dunedin, Larnach made his fortune through a series of good investments, including buying and selling farms and land speculations. Larnach was also involved in shipping, politics, farming, and landholding. He didn't just manage the bank, he invested personally: land, shipping, farms. Every transaction that crossed his desk was an opportunity to understand the market, to see where money was flowing, to position himself ahead of others. By the early 1870s, William Larnach was wealthy. Not old money wealthy, new money, goldfield money, the kind of wealth that could vanish as quickly as it arrived if not secured properly. And William Larnach decided to secure it by building something permanent. According to legend, Larnach discovered the site for his grand home while horseback riding with his son, the Otago Peninsula, a ridge overlooking the harbor, elevated 800 feet above sea level. Panoramic views of locations such as the Otago Harbor, Dunedin, the Pacific Ocean, and the peninsula. The site was perfect, defensible, visible, commanding. A statement in geography. The land for the construction was acquired in 1870. William Larnach was 37 years old. He had 6 children. He had a wife he'd been married to for 11 years. He had wealth, but no legacy. Goldfield fortunes disappeared. Banks collapsed. Investments failed. But a house, a great house, built properly, built to last, that could endure. He would build Eliza a castle.
Larnach hired R.A. Lawson to design the mansion, and construction on the enormous home began in 1871. Robert Arthur Lawson, one of the finest architects in New Zealand. First Church, Dunedin, Otago Boys High School, National Bank, Oamaru, Seacliff Lunatic Asylum. Lawson designed in Gothic Revival style, the aesthetic of Victorian Britain. Medieval inspiration applied to modern buildings. Pointed arches, steep roofs, ornamental towers. The style evoked castles, cathedrals, permanence. It was built in the Gothic Revival style, which means it looked like old medieval castles and cathedrals. This was deliberate. Larnach was Scottish. He wanted something that evoked Scottish baronial architecture, the castles of the Highlands, the fortified manor houses of clan chiefs. A Scottish baronial manor with crenulations, the bits that make it appear to be a castle. Not a true medieval fortress, but close enough. The appearance of centuries-old heritage, built new. There were close to 200 workmen used to build the main part of the structure, and no expense was spared. 200 men, laborers, stonemasons, carpenters. The site was meticulously prepared by clearing and leveling the land, using innovative methods such as pegging the layers of volcanic rock and using cold salt water to split the surface. The Otago Peninsula was volcanic basalt, hard stone that resisted conventional quarrying. Workers used cold salt water to crack the rock along natural fissures, splitting layers that could then be shaped into building stone. Much of the stone used for the castle came from a basalt quarry nearby, local material for the foundation and walls. But Larnach imported materials from across the world. Larnach imported material for the home from around the world, including bricks from Glasgow, marble from Italy, cobbles from Marseille, and blackstone from Cornwall. Other materials included yellow brick, Glasgow brick, Oamaru stone, Port Chalmers basalt, Cornwall blackstone, Italian marble, Marseille's cobbles, Catlin's timber, North Island cowrie, and local Caversham sandstone. Every material told a story. Glasgow bricks from Scotland, invoking his heritage. Italian marble for elegance. Marseille's cobbles for the courtyard. Cornwall blackstone for ornamental details. Timber from New Zealand's native forests. Cowrie from the North Island. Rimu and Totara from the Catlins. A house built from the world, assembled on a New Zealand hilltop. The exterior of the home took about 3 years to complete. By 1874, the shell was finished. The Larnach family is able to move into the castle proper, having lived in cottages whilst it was being erected. The building, which Larnach himself simply called the camp, was coined a castle by local press on 8 December 1874, a few days after William and Eliza moved in. The camp, a modest name for an immodest house, but the press saw it differently. This wasn't a house, this was a castle, and the name stuck. But the interior was unfinished.
Larnach hired European craftsmen to build the interior, which took about 12 years. 12 years, 1874 to 1886. While the family lived in the castle, craftsmen worked around them, carving, plastering, installing, finishing. Craftsmen, plasterers, and glaziers from Venice, Italy, as well as wood carvers from England are used to embellish the interior and exterior of the castle. Venetian plasterers, English wood carvers. These were not local tradesmen. These were specialists brought from Europe, artisans trained in techniques unavailable in colonial New Zealand. The cost of transporting them, housing them, paying them for years of work, extraordinary. The Godfrey family carved many of the building's intricate ceilings. A single ceiling in the main foyer took 6.5 years to complete. 6.5 years, one ceiling. The Godfrey family, 3 carvers, working daily, carving wood by hand, creating intricate patterns in kauri. Today, this same ceiling takes cleaners 2.5 weeks to clean and oil. The level of detail was obsessive. The handrail, rather than being steamed to create its curvature, was carved by hand from large slabs of kauri, then lovingly pieced together. The Georgian hanging staircase. Rather than use steam bending, a faster and cheaper technique, the craftsman carved each curve by hand, fitted the pieces together seamlessly. The result, the Georgian hanging staircase, deemed the finest example of its type in the southern hemisphere. Plaster was impregnated with colors, then painstakingly applied by the Italian plasterers to create ceilings of great beauty. Colored plaster, mixed with pigments, applied in layers, creating ceilings that looked hand-painted but were actually plasterwork. This technique required extraordinary skill, knowledge of chemistry and color theory, patience. In 1875, 20 tons of glass was imported from Venice in an effort to enclose exposed verandas unsuitable for Dunedin winters. 20 tons shipped from Venice to New Zealand. Glass in massive sheets, packed carefully, transported by ship from Moths, installed to enclose verandas that had been left open during initial construction. Dunedin winters are harsh, wind and rain sweeping off the Pacific. The original design hadn't accounted for this. The Venetian glass solved it. An original 1-ton Spanish marble bath that depicts the Herculean baths of the ancient worlds of Greece and Rome can be viewed in the castle proper. It apparently took 6 horses and 12 men to put it into place. 1 ton, a solid marble bathtub carved in Spain depicting scenes from Greek and Roman mythology. Getting it to New Zealand required shipping it as cargo. Getting it up the hill to the castle required 6 horses hauling a cart. Getting it into the bathroom required 12 men maneuvering it through doors, upstairs, into position.
This was not practical. This was statement. In the rooms where men dominated and held court, there are grand examples of black Italian marble fireplaces. As for the rooms where women held favor, the fireplaces are of exquisite white Italian marble. Even the fireplaces encoded gender. Black marble for masculine spaces, the library, the study, the billiard room. White marble for feminine spaces, the drawing room, the morning room, the bedrooms. A methane plant to ensure gas lighting throughout the castle was erected, and there is also evidence Larnach attempted to have a hydroelectric scheme commissioned, although there is nothing to suggest it was ever successful. Larnach was investing in technology. Gas lighting was modern in the 1870s, far superior to candles or oil lamps. He built a methane plant on the property to generate gas. He attempted hydroelectric power, though it apparently failed. But the ambition was clear. This house would have every modern convenience. The resulting complex eventually contained 43 rooms and required a staff of 46 servants. 43 rooms, 46 servants. Butlers, housemaids, ladies' maids, footmen, cooks, kitchen staff, stable hands, groundskeepers, farriers, bakers, slaughtermen, nannies, farm laborers. The complex included 300 acres reserved for grounds, including a vinery, and a home farm of 300 acres with its own farmstead, including a cow byre for 300 cows, stables, and quarters for farm workers. This wasn't just a house. This was an estate, self-sufficient, capable of producing its own food, its own dairy, its own meat. The 300-acre farm employed workers who lived in separate quarters, managed livestock, grew crops. And while all of this was being built, while craftsmen carved ceilings and plasterers created beauty,
The Larnach family lived there. Eliza, the 6 children. William commuting to Dunedin for business and politics. He was elected to Parliament in 1875, member for Dunstan, later for Dunedin Central. His political career was successful, his banking and investment ventures profitable. The castle rose around his family, a monument to success, to permanence, to legacy. And then Eliza died. Eliza died in 1880 at age 38 after bearing 6 children. November 8, 1880, Eliza Jane Larnach from an apoplectic fit in the castle. An apoplectic fit, likely a stroke or brain hemorrhage. Sudden, fatal. She was 38 years old. The castle was 6 years old, the interior still unfinished, the ballroom not yet built. Eliza had lived in the castle for 6 years, surrounded by craftsmen, by the constant work of finishing, by the promise of what it would become. She died before it was complete. William was 47, 6 children ranging from young adults to teenagers. The eldest, Donald, was 20. The youngest, Gladys, was a child, and their mother was gone. The castle that William had built for Eliza now stood as her monument. The ceilings she never saw finished, the ballroom that would never be built for her. Larnach's second wife, Mary Cockburn Alleyne, also died at 38 in 1887. William remarried, Mary Alleyne, Eliza's half-sister. This was not uncommon in the Victorian era, widowers marrying their deceased wife's relatives, maintaining family connections, providing a mother figure for children. Mary moved into the castle. She became stepmother to Eliza's 6 children, some of whom were nearly adults. She took over management of the household, the 46 servants, the elaborate social functions required of a politician's wife. And 7 years later, she died, also aged 38. Blood poisoning, according to some accounts, an infection likely from a minor injury or illness that turned septic. Medical care in 1880s New Zealand was limited. Antibiotics didn't exist. Blood poisoning was often fatal. 1887, William Larnach was 54. He had buried 2 wives, both 38, both dead in the castle he had built. The addition of the 3,000-square-foot ballroom was completed in 1887 as a 21st birthday present for Larnach's eldest daughter, Kate. The ballroom, 3,000 square feet, completed in 1887, the year Mary died. The ballroom was Kate's 21st birthday present. Kate Emily Larnach, the eldest daughter, 21 in 1887. The ballroom was designed for her debut into society, for the parties and dances where she would meet potential suitors, where the Larnach family would display their wealth and status, where Kate would begin her adult life. 4 years later, Kate was dead. Daughter Kate Emily Larnach from typhoid fever on July 24, 1891, at 29 years old. Typhoid fever, a bacterial infection, often from contaminated water or food, common in the 19th century, fatal without proper treatment. Kate was 26 or 29, depending on the source, young. The ballroom her father had built for her 21st birthday became another monument to death. 3 deaths, Eliza, Mary, Kate, all in the castle, all within 11 years. And William Larnach remarried again. 1891. William Larnach was 57 years old, 2 dead wives, 1 dead daughter, 5 surviving children, all adults or near adults. He remarried in 1891. Constance Brandon, 35 years old, 22 years younger than William, no familial connection to the Larnachs, a widow herself, or perhaps divorced. The records are unclear. The commerce was controversial from the start. Constance moved into the castle. She became stepmother to William's 5 surviving children: Donald, 31, Douglas, late 20s, Colleen, Alice, Gladys. These were not young children needing maternal care. These were adults, some married, some with children of their own. While the siblings fought among themselves, they all liked Kate and despised Constance. The children united in their dislike. They think she is there to pick Larnach's pocket and disinherit them. Gold digger, fortune hunter, a woman barely older than William's eldest children, marrying their wealthy father, likely manipulating him for inheritance. This suspicion wasn't entirely unfair. William was wealthy, Constance was young and had no fortune of her own. The age gap was significant, and William was vulnerable. 2 dead wives, 1 dead daughter, isolated in a castle on a hilltop, surrounded by servants, but no family of his own generation. But the situation was more complicated than simple fortune hunting. It is part of the Larnach family story that it did happen. The affair. Constance and Douglas. Douglas John Larnach, William's second son. Douglas, the dutiful one, the loyal son, the one William trusted. Douglas was only 7 or 8 years younger than Constance. They lived in the same house. They saw each other daily. Rumored relationship between Constance and Douglas, who were thought to have fallen in love. The rumors spread through Dunedin society. William's wife and his son, in the castle, under William's roof. Alice, the provocateur, is young and spiteful. Alice, one of the younger daughters, scheming, watching, collecting evidence. His second youngest daughter, Alice, is very scheming and plots to confirm the affair between Douglas and Constance. She finds a letter between the pair which she gives to her father. A letter, written by Douglas or Constance, or both, found by Alice, given to William. What the letter said is unknown. A confession, a love note, an apology. Whatever it contained was damning enough. Larnach is in deep financial straits at this time with the Colonial Bank. The Colonial Bank of New Zealand. Larnach was a director. The bank was collapsing.
The Colonial Bank of New Zealand failed in 1895. Banks in colonial economies were inherently risky. They financed land speculation, mining ventures, agricultural investments. When the economy boomed, banks profited. When it contracted, banks collapsed. The 1890s were a period of economic depression across New Zealand and Australia. Banks overextended, borrowers defaulted, confidence evaporated. The Colonial Bank was one of the casualties. Later that year, Larnach once again found himself on the brink of financial ruin. William Larnach had investments tied to the bank. He was a director, which meant he was personally liable for the bank's debts under the laws of the time. When the bank failed, creditors came after the director's personal wealth. Larnach faced ruin. The castle, the estate, the investments, all at risk of seizure to pay bank debts. And began making mistakes in his political career. His political judgment wavered. He made speeches that angered constituents. He supported unpopular policies. His reputation, built over decades, began to crack. And at home, the letter. Larnach feels he cannot be loved anymore, and that no one loves him. 2 dead wives, 1 dead daughter, 5 surviving children who resented his third marriage, a third wife possibly having an affair with his son, financial collapse, political failures. The castle he had built as a monument to family was now a prison of betrayal and debt. The playwright is asking, is Larnach's behavior, which ends in the ultimate tragedy, a family tragedy rather than a financial one? Family or finance? Both. Inseparable. The man who built a castle to protect his family watched that family disintegrate. The man who accumulated wealth to secure his legacy watched that wealth evaporate. October 12, 1898. Wellington, Parliament Buildings. After a series of personal and financial setbacks, he died by suicide in New Zealand's Parliament Buildings in October 1898. In 1898, he locked himself in a Parliament committee room and shot himself. Committee Room 7, morning. William Larnach, 65 years old, Member of Parliament, locked the door, placed a gun to his head, pulled the trigger. William Larnach's suicide by gunshot in Parliament Buildings on October 12, 1898, amid financial ruin, financial betrayal, 2 explanations, both true. The letter, the one Alice had given him, the one about Constance and Douglas, may have been the trigger. Or it may have been the bank collapse, or the accumulation of deaths. Eliza, Mary, Kate, each loss compounding, each death making the castle feel more like a mausoleum. He died 300 miles from the castle. He died alone, and the surviving family tore itself apart over what remained.
Following bitter legal battles over Larnach's will, the Larnach family sold the house in 1906. William Larnach died intestate, no will. Whether he had never written one or had destroyed it is unknown. Dying without a will meant his estate was divided according to law, not according to his wishes. At the end of the play, Larnach's will is read, and what is left of the family fortune is divided among 3 of the children, Donald, Colleen, and Alice. Douglas gets nothing. Constance gets only her wedding jewelry, and the others get 71. They're just aghast. This is from a theatrical dramatization, so the exact details may be fictionalized, but the core truth, the estate was divided bitterly. Douglas, the son allegedly involved with Constance, was disinherited or received nothing. Constance, the widow, received minimal inheritance. The other children fought over the scraps. And there wasn't much left. The Colonial Bank collapse had consumed most of William's liquid wealth. The castle and estate remained, but maintaining them required money the family no longer had. The castle, which had cost over £100,000 to build, which required 46 servants to operate, which needed constant maintenance and repairs, the surviving Larnachs couldn't afford it. They fought for 8 years, legal battles, accusations, resentments festering. Finally, in 1906, they sold. The castle that William built for Eliza, that he filled with beauty and craftsmanship, that he built to secure his family's legacy, sold to strangers. Son Donald Geiss Larnach's suicide by self-inflicted wound in Dunedin on July 15, 2010. 4 years after the castle was sold, Donald Larnach killed himself. He passed away in 2010, age 50, self-inflicted wound. The details are sparse, but the fact is clear. Another Larnach dead by suicide. First William, then Donald, father and son, both driven to self-destruction. The curse of the castle, some said. The weight of tragedy. But curses are metaphors. The reality was simpler and sadder. A family destroyed by debt, betrayal, death, and the pressure to maintain an unsustainable monument.
Throughout the 20th century, Larnach Castle went through constant changes of ownership and usage. After 1906, the castle passed through multiple owners. None stayed long. The operating costs were enormous. 43 rooms requiring heating, maintenance, staff. The remote location made it impractical as a residence for anyone without significant wealth. The castle itself was also home to many of the 46 staff he had working on the property. But subsequent owners couldn't afford 46 staff. They couldn't afford 10. The castle, designed to operate with a full household, became a burden. The building fell into disrepair. Roofs leaked, plaster cracked, the Venetian glass broke and wasn't replaced. The hand-carved ceilings accumulated dust and grime. The marble fireplaces were removed and sold. Furniture disappeared. The gardens overgrew. With the abdication of the Grand Duke in 1918, the castle was taken over by the state and was used for many purposes, i.e., served as a nursery, museum, and hospital. Wait, that's from the Schwerin script, let me correct. For Larnach, after many years of disrepair, the castle was near ruined in 1967 when it was purchased by Barry and Margaret Barker. 1967. 61 years after the Larnachs sold it, the castle was derelict. There was no furniture left, the grand ballroom was being used as a sheep pen, and many of the architectural features were missing. A sheep pen. The 3,000-square-foot ballroom that William built for Kate's 21st birthday, where Italian plasterers had created colored ceilings, where Venetian glass enclosed the verandas, used to house livestock. Barry and Margaret Barker were young. In the summer of 1967, Barry and Margaret Barker, a young couple traveling through New Zealand's South Island in a combi van, discovered Larnach Castle and purchased it on impulse, finding the property in a severe state of disrepair. They were traveling in a van. They stumbled across the castle. They bought it on impulse. This was not a calculated investment by wealthy developers. This was a couple taking a chance on a ruin. The building fell into disrepair and in 1967 was bought by Barry and Margaret Barker. Norcom Barker became Larnach Castle Executive Director in 1990. Significant restoration work has since been carried out by the Barker family, along with retrieval of original furniture to refurnish the house. The Barkers spent decades restoring the castle. Over the decades, the Barkers have restored the castle to its original glory, and today almost all of the original 43 rooms have been returned to the standards that William Larnach envisioned more than 100 years before. They tracked down original furniture, pieces that had been sold off over the decades, scattered across New Zealand. They repaired plaster, they restored ceilings, they replanted gardens. They opened the castle to tourists to fund the ongoing restoration. The site operates daily throughout the year, including public holidays. The castle attracts over 100,000 visitors annually in typical years. 100,000 visitors per year. Tourists walking through rooms where Eliza died, where Mary died, where Kate grew up before typhoid killed her. Photographing the ballroom that was built as a birthday present for a daughter who died 4 years later. Admiring marble baths and carved ceilings and Venetian glass. The gardens were not an original feature of William Larnach's home and have been awarded Garden of International Significance status by the New Zealand Gardens Trust. The gardens are a later addition, created by the Barkers, now internationally recognized. William would likely approve. He wanted something magnificent, something that would last, something that would proclaim the Larnach name. He got that, but not the way he wanted.
What does Larnach Castle reveal about love, death, and the monuments we build? First, that no amount of wealth can protect you from mortality. William Larnach was rich. He could import marble from Italy, glass from Venice, craftsmen from England. He could build a castle with 43 rooms on a hilltop. He could employ 46 servants. He could afford the best medical care available in 1880s New Zealand. And his wives died anyway, both at 38. His daughter died at 26 or 29. Strokes, blood poisoning, typhoid, diseases that money couldn't cure, that wealth couldn't prevent. The castle was supposed to protect them. The hilltop location, the solid basalt walls, the modern gas lighting and attempted hydroelectric power, the self-sufficient farm, the army of servants, all of it designed to create a safe, comfortable, permanent home. But safety is an illusion. The castle couldn't keep death out. Second, that building monuments for people doesn't substitute for being present with them. William spent 12 years finishing the interior, 12 years of craftsmen working constantly, carving ceilings, installing marble, creating beauty. He was Member of Parliament, frequently in Wellington, 300 miles away. He was managing investments, banking interests, political responsibilities. The castle was his gift to his family. But gifts require givers, and givers require time. Eliza lived in the castle for 6 years before she died. Did she want a 1-ton Spanish marble bath depicting Greek mythology, or did she want her husband home more often? We don't know. The historical record doesn't tell us what Eliza thought. It tells us what William built, and those aren't the same thing. Third, that legacy is uncontrollable. William built the castle to secure his family's future, to establish the Larnach name permanently in New Zealand history. He succeeded in the second goal. Larnach Castle is famous, the name is known, but the family fell apart. Donald committed suicide. Douglas was disinherited or received nothing, possibly because of an affair with his stepmother. The daughters fought among themselves. The castle was sold. The estate dissolved. William's legacy isn't what he intended. It's a tourist attraction, a monument to tragedy, a beautiful ruin that was saved by strangers, not by his descendants.
The question of Constance and Douglas will never be definitively answered. It is part of the Larnach family story that it did happen. Part of the family story. Not documented fact, not proven in court, but persistent enough that it's remembered, repeated, incorporated into dramatizations. Did Constance and Douglas have an affair? Maybe. The circumstances suggest possibility. Douglas was young,
close in age to Constance. They lived in the same house. William was often away in Wellington. Constance was isolated, married to a man more than 20 years older, despised by his children, possibly lonely. Douglas was the dutiful son, the one William trusted. That trust might have created opportunity. Or guilt might have driven Douglas to confess, writing the letter that Alice found and gave to William. Or maybe the affair was entirely invented. Maybe Alice, the provocateur, fabricated it, forged a letter, presented false evidence to drive Constance out and secure the inheritance for herself and her siblings. We don't know. The letter was never made public. William's suicide note, if he left one, wasn't published. The family's legal battles were conducted privately. Constance disappeared from the historical record after William's death. What we do know, William believed something had happened, whether affair or betrayal or disrespect or financial manipulation. Something convinced him that his third marriage was a mistake, that his family had turned against him, that the castle he'd built was no longer home. And that belief drove him to lock himself in a Parliament committee room and pull a trigger.
The servants who worked at Larnach Castle during its heyday are mostly forgotten. The castle itself was also home to many of the 46 staff he had working on the property. 46 people: butlers, housemaids, footmen, cooks, stable hands, groundskeepers, farm laborers. Some lived in the castle itself, probably in attic rooms or basement quarters. Others lived in separate buildings on the 300-acre estate. 35 acres reserved for grounds, including a vinery and a home farm of 300 acres with its own farmstead, including a cow byre for 300 cows, stables, and quarters for farm workers. The farm workers had their own quarters, separate from the castle. They managed 300 cows, maintained stables, grew crops, produced food for the household. They saw the family rarely, if at all. They worked for Larnach but operated in a different world. The household staff inside the castle worked more closely with the family. They saw Eliza daily. They were present when she died. They saw Mary arrive, saw her die 7 years later. They prepared Kate's 21st birthday party, saw the ballroom used for the first time, cleaned up afterward. They knew when Constance and Douglas were in the same room, might have witnessed behaviors that fueled rumors. And they couldn't speak about any of it publicly. Servants in Victorian households were expected to be invisible, discreet, loyal. Gossip about the family could result in immediate dismissal, loss of wages, loss of references. A servant's livelihood depended on silence. So their stories are lost. We don't know their names. We don't know what they witnessed, what they thought, what they knew about Constance and Douglas, about William's mental state before his suicide, about the family dynamics. They kept the castle functioning. They cleaned 43 rooms. They maintained the fires, the gas lighting, the marble baths. They prepared meals for the family and for themselves. They laundered clothing, made beds, polished silver, tended gardens. And when the castle was sold in 1906, they lost their jobs. Some may have found work with the new owners, most probably scattered to other positions, other households, other towns. Their labor built the daily life that made the castle livable. Their silence protected the family's secrets. Their names disappeared. The ballroom is the heart of the tragedy. The addition of the 3,000-square-foot ballroom was completed in 1887 as a 21st birthday present for Larnach's eldest daughter, Kate. 3,000 square feet. William spent an additional £40,000, roughly 260 million NZD in today's money, to complete the ballroom. £40,000, in addition to the 100 to 150,000 already spent on the rest of the castle. This was extravagance on a scale that defies reason. A single room costing what most New Zealanders wouldn't earn in multiple lifetimes for a 21st birthday party. But William wasn't building a room, he was building a future. Kate's debut into society, her entry into adulthood, her opportunity to meet suitable men, marry well, establish her own family. The ballroom was an investment in Kate's prospects, in the continuation of the Larnach line.
The ballroom was completed in 1887, Kate's 21st birthday. The party was probably magnificent. Dancing, music, guests from Dunedin society, a display of wealth and taste. Kate in a beautiful dress, surrounded by admirers, her father watching proudly. 4 years later, Kate was dead. Daughter Kate Emily Larnach from typhoid fever on July 24, 1891, at age 29. The ballroom became a monument to wasted hope. The ceiling Italian plasterers had created, the Venetian glass that enclosed the space, the polished floors, the elaborate details, all of it built for a woman who didn't live long enough to use it beyond her youth. After William's death, after the family sold the castle, the ballroom fell into disrepair. The grand ballroom was being used as a sheep pen. Sheep standing on the floor where Kate had danced, sheltering under the ceiling that took craftsmen years to create. The Barkers restored it. Today, the ballroom is used for weddings, events, functions. The site attracts over 100,000 visitors annually in typical years. People dance there now. Brides get married there. The room functions as it was designed to function. But the ghost is Kate, 21 in 1887, dead at 26 or 29. The ballroom was hers, and she barely got to use it.
The financial collapse that contributed to William's suicide was not unique to him. The 1890s depression hit New Zealand and Australia hard. Later that year, Larnach once again found himself on the brink of financial ruin. The Colonial Bank of New Zealand failed in 1895. Other banks collapsed around the same time. The entire financial system was unstable. Businesses failed. Landowners lost properties. Fortunes accumulated during the gold rush and land boom evaporated. William Larnach was wealthy, but much of his wealth was illiquid. Property, investments, the castle itself. When creditors demanded payment for bank debts, William couldn't simply write a check. He would have to sell assets, possibly including the castle and estate. Selling the castle while living was unthinkable. It was his monument, his family's home, his life's work. Selling it would be admitting defeat, acknowledging that the legacy he'd built was unsustainable. So he held on, and the debt accumulated, and the pressure built. This was a pattern across the British Empire. Wealthy colonials built estates they couldn't afford to maintain long-term. The initial construction was funded by boom-time profits, but maintaining grand houses required constant income, and colonial economies were volatile. When the booms ended, the estates became burdens. Larnach Castle is an example of this pattern. Built during New Zealand's gold rush prosperity, unsustainable once the economy contracted, too expensive for the family to keep after William's death. Sold, abandoned, left to decay until buyers with different expectations, tourists, not residents, found a way to make it economically viable. So, what do you build when you love someone and want to protect them? William Larnach built a castle. 43 rooms, marble and glass and hand-carved ceilings, a fortress on a hilltop, 300 acres, 46 servants. He built it for Eliza. She died in it. He finished parts of it for Mary. She died in it. He added the ballroom for Kate. She died 4 years later. The castle couldn't protect them. It couldn't keep Eliza from suffering a stroke. It couldn't prevent Mary's blood poisoning. It couldn't shield Kate from typhoid. The castle was William's way of showing love, but showing isn't the same as giving. Building isn't the same as being present. We don't know what Eliza wanted. Maybe she loved the castle. Maybe she was proud of it. Maybe she showed visitors the hand-carved ceilings and the Venetian glass with genuine pleasure. Or maybe she would have preferred a smaller house and more time with her husband. The historical record doesn't tell us. It tells us what William built, and it tells us when people died. William remarried twice, trying to replace what death had taken. Both marriages ended in death or betrayal. The third wife possibly having an affair with his son, the son possibly betraying his father under his father's roof.
Or maybe none of that happened. Maybe it was all rumor, misunderstanding, jealousy from other children. Maybe Constance and Douglas were innocent, and the real betrayal was Alice manufacturing evidence. We don't know. What we do know, William believed he'd been betrayed, and that belief, combined with financial ruin, drove him to suicide. The castle he built to protect his family became the site of multiple deaths, family warfare, and ultimately the family's financial collapse. The legacy he tried to secure evaporated within a decade of his death. The castle survived. The family didn't.
Walk Larnach Castle today, and you walk through rooms that contain multiple stories. The official story: a wealthy banker built a magnificent castle for his family. Tragedy struck. Wives and a daughter died. Financial difficulties and personal setbacks led to the builder's suicide. The family sold the property. It fell into disrepair. A young couple restored it. Now it's a tourist attraction and wedding venue. This story is factually accurate. It's also carefully sanitized. The deeper story: a man built a monument to love that became a monument to death. 2 wives died at 38. A daughter died at 26. The builder married a third time to a woman young enough to be his daughter, possibly gold-digging, possibly having an affair with his son. The family tore itself apart over inheritance. The builder killed himself. His son followed 12 years later. This story is also factually accurate. It's darker, more complex, less comfortable. The tours probably emphasize the first story. They mention the deaths but frame them as tragic accidents, unavoidable Victorian-era medical failures. They mention William's suicide but attribute it primarily to financial ruin, not family betrayal. They don't dwell on the affair rumors, the bitter inheritance battles, Donald's suicide. This is understandable. Tour guides want visitors to enjoy the castle, to admire the architecture, to appreciate the restoration. Dwelling on tragedy and scandal makes people uncomfortable. But the tragedy and scandal are inseparable from the castle's meaning. The question that haunts Larnach Castle: can buildings love you back? William Larnach loved Eliza. He built her a castle. The castle didn't save her. He loved Mary. The castle didn't save her either. He loved Kate. He built her a ballroom. She died before she could really use it. He built a monument to family. The family collapsed. Buildings can't love. They can't protect. They can't prevent death or betrayal or financial ruin. They're stone and wood and glass. Beautiful, expensive, solid stone and wood and glass. But inert. What buildings can do? Outlast people. Larnach Castle has stood for over 150 years. William died in 1898. Eliza in 1880. Mary in 1887. Kate in 1891. Donald in 1910. All gone. The castle remains. The hand-carved ceiling in the foyer, the one that took 6.5 years to complete, still there. The Georgian hanging staircase carved from single pieces of cowrie, still there. The 1-ton Spanish marble bath, still there. The ballroom, restored, functioning, hosting weddings. The people are gone. The building remains. Is that legacy, or is it just persistence? William wanted the castle to be his family's home for generations. He wanted the Larnach name permanently attached to the hilltop, to Dunedin, to New Zealand history. He got that, but not because his descendants kept the castle, because strangers saved it and turned it into a business. The Barkers, who bought the castle on impulse in 1967, have done more to preserve William's legacy than his own children did. They restored what the Larnachs sold and abandoned. They made the castle economically viable. They ensured it will stand for future generations. But it's not a family home anymore. It's a museum, a venue, a tourist attraction. People pay admission to walk through rooms where a family lived and died and destroyed itself. That's what remains of William Larnach's dream.
The castle documents its own story. even when the tours don't emphasize it. The scale documents the ambition: 43 rooms, 300 acres, 46 servants required. This wasn't a comfortable family home. This was a statement, a claim to aristocratic status in a colonial society that had no aristocracy. The imported materials document the global reach: Italian marble, Venetian glass, Glasgow bricks, Marseille cobbles, English craftsmen. This wasn't built from local resources by local workers. This was built by importing the best from around the world, assembling it on a New Zealand hilltop, creating something that didn't belong but existed anyway. The 12-year interior construction documents the obsessive attention to detail: 6.5 years for one ceiling, hand-carved staircases, colored plaster ceilings, custom fireplaces coated by gender. This wasn't efficient construction. This was craft as art, beauty prioritized over practicality. The timeline documents the tragedy. Castle begun 1871. Eliza moved in 1874. Died 1880. Mary arrived sometime after. Died 1887. Ballroom completed 1887 for Kate, who died 1891. William died 1897. Castle sold 1906. 25 years from first death to sale. The castle stood as a monument to an intact family for 6 years, 1874 to 1880. It stood as a monument to death and family disintegration for 87 years, 1880 to 1967, until the Barkers began restoration. All of this is recorded in the building, in its architecture and history, even when the marketing materials emphasize the beauty and romance. The servants' lives are the missing chapter. 46 people worked at Larnach Castle at its peak. We know the number. We don't know most of the names. Some would have been local, from Dunedin or nearby areas. Others might have come from further away, attracted by wages and the prestige of working in the finest house in the region. The hierarchy would have been rigid: butler and housekeeper at the top, ladies' maids serving Eliza, then Mary, then Constance, footmen, housemaids, cooks, kitchen staff, stable hands, groundskeepers, farm laborers, each with specific roles, specific places in the order. They would have witnessed everything: Eliza's final illness, Mary's death from blood poisoning, Kate's decline from typhoid, the arrival of Constance, the youngest of William's wives, barely older than some of the Larnach children, the tension between Constance and the children, Douglas and Constance in the same rooms. And they couldn't speak. Victorian servants were expected to see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing. Discretion was the primary qualification after competence. A servant who gossiped, who revealed family secrets, who testified publicly about what they'd witnessed, unemployable. So they kept silent, and their silence preserved the family's privacy while they were alive and erased the full truth after they were dead. When the castle was sold in 1906, the servants were let go. The new owners wouldn't need 46 staff, maybe a handful, if any. The rest scattered, finding new positions, moving to other towns, disappearing from the historical record. Their labor made the castle livable. Their silence protected the family's reputation. Their names are forgotten. So what remains? A castle on a hilltop, a turret 320 meters above sea level, panoramic views of locations such as the Otago Harbor, Dunedin, the Pacific Ocean, and the peninsula. The basalt walls William's workers quarried using cold salt water to split the volcanic rock. The Glasgow bricks, the Italian marble, the Venetian glass. The hand-carved ceilings, the Georgian hanging staircase, the Spanish marble bath, the ballroom that cost £40,000. The site attracts over 100,000 visitors annually in typical years. 100,000 people per year walking through the rooms where Eliza lived and died, where Mary lived and died, where Kate grew up before typhoid killed her, where Constance possibly betrayed William with his son, where the family fought over inheritance. The gardens the Barkers created, now internationally recognized. The restored interiors, close to William's original vision. The tours explaining the architecture, the history, the restoration. But what do visitors actually see? They see beauty, and they should. The castle is beautiful. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The setting is spectacular. They see history, and they should. This is New Zealand history, colonial history, the story of wealth and ambition and architecture. But do they see tragedy? Do they feel the weight of the deaths? Do they understand that the ballroom was built for a woman who died young, that the castle was supposed to protect a family but couldn't, that the builder killed himself in a locked room 300 miles away? Maybe some do. Maybe the tours mention it. Maybe the guides talk about William's suicide, about the family's collapse, about the years of decay before restoration. Or maybe they don't. Maybe the emphasis is on beauty and romance and restoration, on the fairy tale castle saved by the Barkers, on the wedding venue and the gardens and the views. Both approaches are valid. Both are incomplete.
Larnach Castle stands today on its hilltop on the Otago Peninsula, exactly as it has since 1871. The basalt walls are solid. The turret rises 320 meters above sea level. The views stretch across the harbor, across Dunedin, across the Pacific. The Barker family maintains it carefully. The site operates daily throughout the year, including public holidays. Tourists walk the rooms. Couples get married in the ballroom. School groups visit for history lessons. Photographers capture the architecture, the gardens, the views. The castle functions. It survives. It endures. But what does it mean? For William Larnach, it was supposed to mean love, family, legacy, permanence. A home for Eliza and their children and their children's children. A monument to success, to arrival, to having built something that would outlast mortality. He was partially right. The castle outlasted him. But not as a family home, as a tourist attraction, maintained by strangers who never knew him, visited by thousands who know his name only because it's on the sign. For Eliza, Mary, and Kate, the castle was home, and then tomb. They lived in it briefly. They died in it, or shortly after. Whatever hopes they had, whatever dreams, whatever desires, the castle couldn't fulfill them. Death came anyway. For Constance and Douglas, if the affair happened, the castle was the site of betrayal. If it didn't happen, the castle was the site of false accusation, family warfare, reputation destroyed by rumor. For Donald, who inherited part of the estate and then killed himself in 1910, the castle represented the impossible weight of expectation, the pressure to maintain something unsustainable, the burden of being a Larnach. For the 46 servants who kept the castle functioning, it was employment, wages, work. Some probably took pride in maintaining such a grand house. Others probably resented the long hours, the rigid hierarchy, the invisibility. All of them are forgotten. For the Barkers, who bought a ruin on impulse in 1967, the castle was a project, a passion, a life's work. They saved it, they restored it, they made it viable. Their contribution to William's legacy is arguably greater than his own children's. For the 100,000 annual visitors, the castle is a destination, a photo opportunity, a glimpse into Victorian grandeur, a beautiful building on a hilltop. All of these meanings coexist. The castle contains them all. Buildings do not choose their meanings. People do. William chose to build a castle as an act of love. That castle became a monument to death. He chose to secure his legacy through architecture. That architecture survived, but the legacy transformed into something he never intended. The castle stands. The family is gone. The love that built it is commemorated, but not preserved. The deaths that haunted it are remembered, but not mourned. The beauty remains, undeniable, extraordinary, worth preserving. But underneath that beauty, embedded in every hand-carved ceiling and Italian marble fireplace, recorded in the timeline of construction and decay and restoration, the truth remains. You cannot build your way out of mortality. You cannot protect the people you love by surrounding them with stone and glass. You cannot secure legacy through architecture when the family itself is fragile.
The castle William built for love stands today as evidence that love isn't enough, that beauty can't prevent tragedy, that monuments outlast the people who build them and the people that built for. The basalt walls hold, the turret rises, the views stretch across the harbor, and the ghosts remain, invisible to tourists, present anyway. Eliza, 38, dead from a stroke. Mary, 38, dead from blood poisoning. Kate, 26, dead from typhoid. William, 65, dead by his own hand in a locked room. Donald, 50, following his father into self-destruction. The castle knows their names. The walls remember, but walls don't speak. Larnach Castle stands on its hilltop, beautiful and haunted, restored and empty. A monument to love that couldn't save anyone, a fairy tale that ended in tragedy. And the tourists keep coming, photographing the views, admiring the ceilings, getting married in the ballroom built for a woman who died young. The castle endures. The questions remain.